How's it going, guys, and welcome back to BL3's Forgotten, the series where I take a look at underused and not often talked about pieces of gear to determine whether or not they deserve to be remembered in the modern meta of the game or should be left behind and forgotten. And today we are taking a look at the Sawbar. If you'd like to farm the Sawbar for yourself, you're going to want to fast travel over to the Meridian Outskirts fast travel station, within, of course, the Meridian Outskirts on Promethea, where you can catch a ride and head towards the left towards this encampment. You can either head into the elevator or climb up it, and traveling through this section and towards Borman Nates, who you can kill to potentially get the Sawbar. The Sawbar is a legendary COV assault rifle only able to roll an incendiary, and has the unique effect that after a set distance, the bullets fired from the Sawbar will split into three, going into three different directions, before exploding and dealing incendiary splash damage. The Sawbar has been buffed twice, initially receiving 80% increased weapon damage, along with a reduction in the timing before the projectile would split, meaning that it would split a little sooner, which was later followed by another 100% weapon damage increase, along with an increase to the radius of the child projectiles. Now, there are some people that may disagree here, but I am of the opinion that the Sawbar has actually been consistently good through the entire life cycle of BL3, with those direct damage buffs actually mattering less to the current state of the Sawbar than the quality of life changes did. Of course, the Sawbar would be pretty bad if it wasn't for that final 100% weapon damage increase, but that's really only because that came after Mayhem 2.0, and that jumped to Mayhem 10 being the only time that the Sawbar was really bad. But of course, with this praise, I'm sure it's very obvious my opinion on the Sawbar is that it's a very strong, very good gun, but it doesn't come without any sort of drawbacks, and it does have a few pretty big ones. Probably the biggest and the one that I noticed the most isn't necessarily a problem with just the Sawbar, but COV assault rifles in general. Now, the amount that it overheats is actually pretty average. It averages out between the fire rate and the shots to break with assault rifles to usually being around 9 to 10 seconds of firing. The problem is, because this is a somewhat high fire rate at 5.88, as you start stacking fire rate bonuses, they are very effective, and since there's very limited sources of increasing the maximum heat of a COV gun, it's very easy to start overheating this thing on a majority of characters, especially due to the introduction of the shield that shall not be named. But this isn't to say that this makes me not want to use the Sawbar, because I think it feels totally fair. The damage and potential AoE that the Sawbar can output feels like it needs something to kind of rein it back in, and this overheating problem is exactly that. It's a great way to balance the gun, and it is a system that can actually be played around either through increasing your shots to break, not speccing too high into fire rate, or just learning how to properly play around that heat mechanic. Now, the other drawback here is that despite that change to make the split happen sooner, I do still think this split happens pretty far away, which does make it pretty difficult to get consistent value out of it, and next to impossible to in close quarters areas. But this is another thing that I don't necessarily see as making this gun bad or something I don't want to use, and in fact it actually makes me love the Sawbar even more. I think having guns have strong strengths and weaknesses is actually healthy for the meta and fantastic weapon design. Because of the huge ass area of the Sawbar and how it works, it makes it very good for dealing with large groups, and especially for enemies behind cover because it's very easy to hit them. This carves out the niche for the Sawbar to be used in places that have long sight lines with either large groups of enemies or a hell of a lot of cover, which it's cool to have guns in your bag that you can just swap to when the situation comes for them. I find that a lot more interesting than just using the same 4 guns in every single scenario, which is unfortunately just how a lot of the weapon design in Borderlands is. Not that I'm totally against that, but I think having maybe 2 guns that you really use for everything and then having 2 more slots to be able to swap out as you see fit keeps the gameplay more variable and more fresh and therefore more fun. But it also allows you to find synergies that let you take advantage of a specific weapon in more scenarios. For example, of course, Phase Grasp is absolutely incredible for lining it up. Anyone who's used the Sawbar in BL2 knows that Maya was by far the best with it for this exact reason. You can just hold someone in place and blast them with those child projectiles. But you could also use Flak's Pet, Auto Bearer, or Zane's clone for controlling that enemy aggro and keeping enough of a distance to effectively use this. I also really assumed that this was going to be pretty difficult to use on Zane for the most part, just due to his taunt constant movement, and therefore staying in that sweet spot would be more difficult, but it was actually the opposite. Repositioning to get far enough away to hit that split was way easier with Zane than any other character because of that movement, and he also had a very cool synergy with Eraser. Not only just for getting a shit ton of damage out of it, of course, but because you can actually control the range to get more out of the Sawbar if you get the hang of it. Since Eraser creates a whole new projectile, the split distance is reset when it exits an enemy's crit spot, meaning if you crit prior to the split will happen further out. If you have an enemy closer, you can shoot into their crit to not only kill them, but annihilate anything behind them. And of course, the final synergy to mention here, though, is that these child projectiles are unlisted, meaning that they have great synergy with bonus projectiles, meaning that all 3 of those projectiles will duplicate. So if you have 2 projectiles, you get 6 total after the split, which of course makes it very good with things like Two Fang playing dirty and the Infernal Wish. Not all synergies are good here, though, because the Sawbar fucking sucks with heavy rain. The splash damage bonus is really nice, but it's not worth the added distance of the split, as it does make it far more difficult to use. Overall, though, I fucking love the Sawbar. I think it's an incredibly fun gun that is not only enjoyable to use, but just very well designed. It carves out its niche and it sticks to it, and it's very strong within it. But even with that, it also offers plenty of very unique playstyles and very unique synergies that can make it even more effective. I do wish the split happened a little bit closer, and it is also a shame that it is incendiary locked, but I mean, incendiary is by far one of the best elements in BL3 anyways, so that's not that big of a deal. On top of just how easy it is to slap any element you want on any gun you want with various sources of bonus elements. The Sawbar is just a very unique, very strong, and very fun weapon to use, and I would highly recommend giving it a go. But that's about do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, definitely consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, all of that. I'll be live right after this video goes up, right here on YouTube, and also over my Twitch channel, where there will be a link to down in the description below, and just under that is a link to my Discord server where you can come and join and hang out. But with that all being said, I hope to see you guys in the next one.